every city basically was a star city. It had these stars. All right. It was. Every city was a star city. And I just need to say a big
we had stars.
Thank you, and sorry to Clement. I wrote Clementine, but I meant a big thank you to Clement
around us
for your kind donation, not Clementine.
Clementine doesn't. There's some synchronicity going on here.
Every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, but also somatic shapes. These are the moats we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, you know, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate somatic patterns, and clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars.
So here's one in Portugal, one of the star forts, the huge amount of terraforming around it. Amazingly, this one is still in pretty much pristine condition compared to the destruction of most of the ones you find today.
Piano notes. As you can see, these are all cymatic. A sharp, B, C, and they're all these cymatic shapes. These are cathedral windows, this line here. These are, you know, rose windows, are all in cathedrals, and these are cymatic patterns, which are created through frequency, so either harmonics or intention. Down here we have, this is our DNA, so these are fractals or cymatic patterns of our DNA. This is what we get when it's good intention. We get these perfect, you know, geometrical shapes, and when it's bad intention, we get this goop. So this is like a polluted river, and this is like a clean river. And so if we tie this back to the cathedrals that have got these windows, and they're connected to the ether with all these spires, and then what else do we have in cathedrals but these things called organs, right? I mean, have these things called organs in our body, and we just, the DNA, you know, cymatic is the same as some frequencies in these windows. So what this is all looking like is these are you know, healing factories, or not even healing, wellness, I guess, just to keep people well. They're pumping out frequencies.
You can literally Google any city of the old world from the 1600s and back, and it will come up in these star fort shapes, and every single one is like Venice, and there's canals everywhere. Those were the highways of the time, but they were also so much more, with all of like this hidden technology, infrastructure, and buried history.
And you can see this one again, always these big cathedrals in the cities, but here's one of the stars, right, or batteries attached into the wall. And there's even another one of these more sort of big regular shaped ones out here, but they always have these stars attached, you know, to these star cities. And again, the canals, and you know, you can see this is a big island kind of thing as well. But the thing is with water's free energy. You know, you float a boat, you use the current, right? The current.
How about the water wheels? What are water wheels? Water wheels are harnessing electrical power. Electricity just as much as it was the physical power and mechanical power that they used out of it. What's to say that windmills and water wheels weren't actually generating hydroelectric and wind power a few 500 years ago?
This is a drawing. This is New York City, right? Battery Park is because this is what was there, a battery. Now that was so synchronistic, I can't believe it.
I'm pretty stoked.
Guys? Tell us about your synchronicity, Andreas.
Oh, I was just thinking that you guys were
really cut off.
No, it's fine. It was good. It's a good video. But I was just thinking that the way that things were playing out, actually climatically, it seemed like everyone was talking about the same thing at the same time. So all the audio buffering on my system was playing literally. So it was literally a sync where it was just, I heard all of us, including myself, all of us like paused and then started speaking at the same time. It was great. But also, what's up? How you doing? I'm gonna duck underneath the fire here. Just doing that. I got this organic magic. I got this organic ginger drink. It's USD. Do you think it's really organic? Like, because it says it's water, carbonated water, and organic ginger. I don't know if I believe. Yeah, sure. I don't know. I'm scared of like what organic means anymore, because I remember organic chemistry, and that was scary stuff, you know.
it's like a better question is explain something that's not organic.
Yeah, that's true too. That's the
Organic
thing.
from the
Organic
earth, right?
plutonium.
Like everything's organic.
Maybe iridium.
Plutonium.
There's that whole question. That's what everyone keeps asking about. Is iridium real, or is it from Earth?
Organic iridium sodium water coming from Flint, Michigan, and somewhere in Siberia.
That's true. I got some iridium water actually from Utah. There's that colloidal metal company. It's like a family that makes colloidal metals. You know what I'm talking about? They take like bars of metal, they electroplate, electrolysis with it, and they sell bottles of like liters of. It's pretty good.
We, in fact, are doing a show on Friday about how to make at home your own colloidal silver. For whatever purpose you wish. Nothing to do with
the electrolysis.
When people keep talking about, they're like, pull out the metals from your computers or take your grandma's jewelry and sell it. I'm like, actually, what you should do is burn these things.
Take your grandma's jewelry.
Yeah, that's what I thought, you know. But hey, what you can do is you can attach a positive and negative charge. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, if we come on, a diamond ring, diamond, and you got this positive and negative charge, and you're using it to create your colloidal metals with your colloidal waters with noble metals. I mean, that seems like the way to do it. A diamond ring.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that you can make colloidal diamond water, but
the diamond won't do anything, but maybe something with lasers. I'm sure the diamond has some sort of a refraction property that's important. I don't know what it is yet, but I imagine there's a reason why people were like making their women wear the most valuable metals. And
I'm majorly glitching out, so I'm gonna just I will be right back.
Man, we're gonna get you an Ethernet cable.
I think like jewels and stuff. I think jewels are to do with like it's tech, right? Like, you know, all the crowns and that have jewels over the third eye, and they have jewels that hang on your heart chakra and stuff. And so I think it's to do with that, to magnify. And then we've just lost them, and we just thought it was all about looking pretty,
super shiny.
Buy zirconias and think it's.
That's the funny thing. I think the cheapest stuff that they use for jewelry is probably really valuable too, because like there's all kinds of things you can do with cubic zirconium or whatever, and in terms of low power wattage crystals that they use in the Arduino chips. Like they're making synthetic crystals all the time for computers, you know, to use crystal clocks and everything. But I imagine the future is going to be diamonds for the most expensive supercomputer that we can connect to with graphene pencil lead tech. Like we're going to be able to Neuralink into the thing, but the thing's probably going to run off something far more impressive than we're used to. And with prisms, you can create refractions of light. And so then you have far more wavelengths of data. And so you can all of a sudden take what was just one beam of light and have 7 times as much data or more, because each one of the colors has data strands. So you can imagine that, plus also different clocks. So each crystal the light's going through is going to have a different, if it's cut, it's going to have a different refraction rate. So each refraction rate, you could use that as a different clock for a different computation. So who knows exactly, but I bet you there's some way that you can make a computer that you literally just have to stick in a gold ring with a diamond on it, and it would just run everything.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the diamonds with the most cuts tend to be the most valuable, don't they? And so I thank you again, Clement, for your kind donation. So is that to do because it's tech? Because like you say, it gives it more refraction points, right?
I think that's like the value of it, but also, you know, natural diamonds are so useful for cutting tools. So that's the other thing, is we're able to use diamonds for making super sharp pointed things. And everyone, sorry, go ahead.
Diamonds on the soles of their shoes as well. But I mean, a diamond is natural.
I think so. I mean, so the question is like, what is a structure, and are structures natural? And so you can look like Teilhard Chardin. He had all these books on the evolution of geology and spirit. And he's like, I'm telling you, spirit comes first. Granted, he's got a bias because he was a priest, but he looked into evolution. He believed in evolution. The Catholic Church tried to silence him because he's like, I'm pretty sure that all this does is prove that consciousness is evolving towards this omega point you guys are calling God, right? So, but along the way, you know, you're saying, hey, stardust or dirt or whatever is forming into not just rocks, but jade and diamonds, these amazing precious stones. And the structure, that's the most important aspect there. So is it natural for diamonds to emerge? I mean, on a deeper level, that's a question of, does chaos just make perfection? Or is there some sort of logic to the symmetry of it? I mean, there's clearly some consciousness in everything. So the fact that diamonds are this perfect density, I mean, I think that there's probably consciousness that makes that happen.
Yeah. Is my audio better too? Someone just said it was a bit low, so I've turned it up. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, they tell us diamonds are made, what, pressurization, coal crushed under the earth for 1 billion trillion years. But have you seen the work of, is it 13th Monkey? No, it's not 13th Monkey. It's the guy who does the trees, the giant trees. And I think Mike Stellium 7 also talks about it too, doesn't he? That the periodic table might be the result of these giant trees, and that everything, all the gemstones and everything are actually bits of these giant fossilized, or whatever you want to call them, trees.
Yeah, I'm pulling up some pictures
in our age that would be natural, right?
I mean, so no, it's cool. I mean, I was just gonna pull up some pictures of like maybe I should pull up nanostructure to see if it shows you different nano
stuff. Yeah.
Right. And so exactly. And so there's different nano rods, nano tubes, nano wires, nano spheres, nano onions. There's all these different shapes. And one of them is daimonic, right? And daimonic is a structure. There's also diamond. This is a diamondoid. But you could look up Buckminster fullerene, which is this buckyball, right? So these structures emerge. Yeah. And this is a funny one, actually, because when they discovered
Buckminster fullerene,
and if you look up like SEM sand, if we just type in SEM sand, SEM is for scanning electron microscopy. So you can find a bunch of these pictures of crazy shapes underneath the rocks that are actually in these amazing shapes. And so nature will grow them, but also it seems like they just happen in nature. And, Stellium 7, we'll get into the biology of nature. I think that proves this point that consciousness uses geology, right?
Yeah.
What did you say, Bernie? Sorry.
Jeremy Reese goes huge into.
You're cutting out, though.
Jeremy Reese, though, I got that. He's into this too.
Sorry. What you're going on about is so crucial, and it's the key to the metamaterials. And Jeremy Reese, the alien scientist, connects down the modern understanding physics and technology of it. And like you said, Mike Stellium 7, and how he's been going into it with his microscopes through the biogeology, I think is the term he calls it, and studying of it. And then my own electrolysis experiments, these plasmids, these nanoparticles, and these different crystallization formations that happen between the different elements when they're forming in and out of these particles, of these reoccurring patterns of transmutation and materialization of matter, this self-organization. It's just fascinating. But,
right, self-organization. So that's the question.
Of nanotechnology.
Nanotechnology is cool because it shows you this stuff growing in nature, because all you have to do is burn a cigarette, and what you're going to get is a bunch of amorphous carbon, right? And if you burn a cigarette hot enough, you're going to get onion-like carbon. And if you burn a cigarette with a torch or a crack pipe or something, I don't know, but you can get nanocarbon, you can get nanodiamonds. And so this is a structure that emerges in nature just from carbon burning at a high enough temperature in a pressurized chamber.
Wow.
So these kinds of structures emerge, and there's nanoscopic diamonds, and that inside of your lungs or something like that's super dangerous, and which is one of the things they talk about amorphous carbon being more dangerous than the tobacco itself, obviously, because once you get amorphous carbon in your lung, it's like these little antennae, right? And you can look at graphene emerges naturally as well. there's all sorts of chemical processes that lead to graphene. Bless you, by the way. And so what they'll do is it's like it'll grab onto part of your DNA while it's opening up, and then it will disrupt the reconnection and rebonding of two new ribonucleic sequences. So in the reproduction of the teratogenic state, the amorphous carbon will mutate the DNA. And that can be dangerous. This is the carcinogenic effect or the teratogenic effect that they talk about. The carcinogenic effect will affect you. Teratogenic effect affects your children. It affects your offspring mutation DNA. So your potential offspring.
Okay,
so
DNA. Wow.
Right. So there's a lot to be said about nanotoxicity, but there's also some really interesting things here. So for instance, amorphous carbon can be used to clean up mismatched and mistangled amino acids that protein folds, misfolded proteins. And when a misfold happens, you can have that resequence, right? So you might have a bunch of them that are sequenced wrong because there's a misfold and it's learned to duplicate that. So sometimes that can be used to really help. And then there's all kinds of super capacities of these structures. For instance, nanodiamonds really useful for lasers, for nanoscopic lasers. We were talking earlier about photonics. They have a thing called a spaser. Laser, spaser, rhymes for a reason. Spaser, or as a plasmonic laser, is a type of laser which aims to confine light to a sub-wavelength scale far below Rayleigh's diffraction limit of light.
I don't think you're allowed to say that word.
Which one?
That's
spaser?
That word.
Spaser. Oh, yeah. Spasers are cool, though.
Oh, so it's spaser. Okay.
Yeah, no, but these are very useful, and they require carbon to have very little space. Yeah, spaser laser,
plasmonic laser.
Right,
you just blew my mind.
Oh, okay.
I knew of stasers, which are sound lasers, but this is a plasma laser. Now you speak of. I'm gonna shut up.
Right?
And let
yeah.
you continue.
Laser.
No. I mean, they're actually, it's interesting. Staser is actually really closely related to a spaser, and they're very similar technologies. But the idea is just a sub wavelength that you can control a density. It's actually larger than a staser. But the use of it is that you can have multiple refraction stages within a spaser, so you can have a bunch of different signals that are being carried at the same time. And I was trying to show you this. The reason is because, let me pull that picture back up. When you look at a nanodiamond or an onion like carbon, we found that there's more surface area to less volume. And what that means is that information can travel with less insulatory loss, right? There's less entropy. So the signal can carry the signal further longer. And so that's why this is so useful. It also, if something breaks, then there's 17 different refraction rates, or maybe 1 million different paths, depending on how large this network is, that it can internode from, right? So that also replaces any broken path of direct. And if there's a more direct path, like lightning, it'll find its way that way. So it's a natural system that emerges. So there's a lot of benefits to moving everything to nanodiamond.
Wow.
But yeah, spasers I was kind of explaining, because you can have, the main thing with the spaser is just that you can have, like we said at the beginning, like multiple waves at the same time, and then they can go in different directions. Nanoscopic spaser. I can show the picture there. Here comes the spaser, natural materials, demonstration of spaser-based nanolaser. I mean, the usage of this is just that you can send data in every direction, and you can send multiple strings of data on the same lane, and that only different, like, remember in National Treasure where they're wearing different colored lenses? What is that? Ben Franklin's glasses, National Treasure.
Yeah.
So basically, at the end of the spaser, what you have different lenses, and each one of those can only pick up one of the sub-wavelengths, right? So all the information is traveling at once, but only certain things can pick up on it.
Yeah.
Right. So you can have way more data.
Yeah, you can have different information bands, kind of. Wow. Cool.
Yeah. Spacers are right.
So, I mean, they must have this stuff going already, though, wouldn't they?
I'm pretty sure they do. And one of the reasons I got into it, like, so back when I was really like in teenage years, like sub-teen, like 14, 15, I was watching Gem and the Holograms, which looks like they're gonna. Gem is my
amazing.
name. She's super outrageous. It's true. But so
Nothing
the
that
thing
you can
about
find.
Gem is that Jerrica Benton, her father in the show, Dr. Benton, is based on a real Dr. No, not this. Find the comic. Are you kidding me? Christy Marks, comic book, Gem. Okay. Benton. Okay, Benton. Does it say Dr. Benton somewhere? I want to find Dr. Benton. Dr. Benton hologram. Stephen Benton, his hologram melded science art comic. So based on this real guy who died, who like invented like brain cancer, holographic imagery and stuff. So the whole show, Gem and the Holograms, takes the idea that he had died, was murdered probably, and gave his synergy computer system to Jerrica in order to like save the world, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But it made me wonder a lot about holograms. And if you remember how weird holograms are, because nothing looks more real than a hologram, and nothing looks more, it's still fake, but it looks more real than real life, because you're like, wow, it captured all of it. It captured what I could not capture. Something's just insane about holograms and their depth. And we don't see them as much anymore, right? Like, how often does anyone? Yeah. And they're so easy to make now, because like everyone has lasers. I'm holding a laser in my hand right now. Like, we could all be making holograms. It doesn't take as much as people realize.
Wow. I just spin out that if you break it, the picture's contained in every piece. The hole's contained in every piece. How does that even work?
So the way a hologram works is they hit it from the side with a laser. Let me see if I can show you like them building one. So you've got a bunch of lasers that are aiming at an angle, and when they hit something at one angle, then they're printing the image so it refracts off from every angle. So you've got a fractal of that laser source, and from every angle, then you can pick it up again. But also, if you cut it, then you also have a duplicate of that information path that's been recorded, so you can actually duplicate a hologram.
It's almost like an ethics that you were just talking about. That
just the laser hologram lights, like. And when taking into consideration the ultraviolet spectrum and the infrared spectrums that are out of our visual light spectrum range, and how much more of the overall light energy universe or wavelengths that exist outside of it on either end, it just, the fractal nature of light and everything, just, it's mind-boggling.
So this is another thing that I think people don't talk enough about, are the ideas of Greek lightning being essentially a lens-powered laser. So solar lens lasers are, you've seen the idea of taking light and refracting it.
That would actually make so much sense, especially in all those stone circles that are aligned up with the solstices and equinox with the sun, and that they are like those what are they called? The same layout of geometry that lasers are, the same like the lungs are as well.
The thing is, he talked about using chemicals and gases.
Talking about, and I forget the exact word.
Oh, the Vesca Pisces? Is that what you're talking about, or what? Sorry, I missed the point. Bernie, sorry.
No, it's the key geometry, a big circle, and then you have a bunch of like medium circles like within that big circle,
like the flower of life,
light all at each other, and then it creates the laser beam out of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm just too tired to remember it. JP would be on it right now, but it's the crucial magnetron, maybe? Is that what it's called? No. Maybe.
I don't know. There's a,
magnetron geometry, maybe look up.
Transformer.
Gamble.
Megatron, there he is. That's better.
But, the Megatron geometry of a laser. It's not a tetragrammetron, which is a tetrahedron. But
That's the name of God, isn't it? Isn't that the name?
It's the circles within the circles,
one that's
almost like the seed of life. And it's specifically when you have like 8 of these circle lights reflecting back on themselves, you get a beam out of it. And a lot of the ancient megalithic stone circles and structures resemble exactly on a macro size what the micro magnetrons make in our modern day lasers with focusing the energy. So if with what Andreas is saying there of putting these lenses in there, if you actually had one of those lenses in each of those stone circle rooms within the bigger circle reflecting back on each other, Michael Tellinger goes big into this with all the stone circles in Africa and going deeper into exactly what I'm talking about. And it's on the macro scale as opposed to the microprocessor that are within our technology today. That would be one crazy beam of energy that was the Greek fire.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that they've also talked about different gases or chemicals that were used. So at first that people were saying, hey, is this, a death ray? This is not a death ray. But now if we know what we know about lasers, right? And you've talked to your buddy, what's his name? The guy who has his channel you had over on New Year's who builds lasers?
Oh, that was Jeremiah, Exotic Propulsion, but it was, there's 2 of his good friends there doing the lasers and lights.
Duncan or something like that. Duncan, Daniel, Dustin, I forget.
There was a couple of them in there. One that was like the specialist that did the really good presentation and talk. I'm going to have to edit that into like a clip.
That was a fun one, yeah.
Movie all on its own. But,
so what you got here is a helium argon laser, and this one here is actually a neon helium laser. And, a lot of the time they don't use the neon with the helium, but the thing is, it's exactly true. And the more you look at it, that's probably what was going on, is they were building something that used pressures and they used gases. They might have had a vacuum tube. I mean, this is, Stefan talked about this, ship in a bottle. Let me look at the ship in the bottle idea. How weird are ship in a bottles, right? And so if you look at ship in a bottle and you compare it to the transformer glass, I don't know if I can find the picture, but they make, if you look at like railway transformer glass, the old ones, these things are basically ship in a bottle design. A lot of this, I like that they decided to throw that in there. But there's these glass transformers, and this is the new versions. But if you go back and you find like 1800s, people call them like the witch glass or something like that, these witch bells, because they were the power bells that they used for capacitors for phone lines. You see these glass bells on top of the phone lines for power lines. So I mean, they're all over the place, and people put them underneath their stairways because they were lucky, apparently, or they were hexed, depending on which part of New England or the South you were from, apparently. So something about the ancient power system that we can remember as glass. The glass seems to be important in vacuum tubes.
Yeah, right. I mean, those things used to be on all the telephone poles. Used to see them around. They used to be all through the bush in Australia. Those, and the like the porcelain ones as well that you see. That they sort of stack. Are they resistors or something? Or insulators, but yeah, I mean, that stuff used to be everywhere. So, and that's the thing, all they'd need to do is smash all the glass and the whole system doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that they're still super useful too. So, I mean, the fact that they're still making them and they're still like the thing, it makes me kind of wonder about the technology, because this would have been so prevalent.
You're so bang on with the glass being a key part of it, Andres. Like the vacuum tube specifically, Walter Russell, he was Nikola Tesla's best time and equal genius of that period. But it's under the American Science Foundation or whatever, natural or science history. It's locked away along with, I think, Westinghouse that Walter Russell worked with. But at the turn of the century, end of the 1890s into the early 1900s, he was getting mass amounts of transmutation, cold fusion, all through gases within plasma tubes, within these vacuum tubes. and thus just by putting a little bit of gas in these glass tubes and then putting a little voltage through it, you get all sorts of plasma, aka fusion or soft nuclear power reactions going on.
And it looks like the is it the Jeb? Is that what it's called? The Jeb pillar from ancient Egypt. Is that it? DJEB.
The Jet. Okay,
D at
the
start.
Jet.
Yeah, that one.
See what you're saying.
Yeah, there's like a few of them.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Hey, one or two more, and they're all electrical technology pieces. It's straight Antiquitech. There's like it's undeniable.
And then you get the like the pagodas, right? The pagodas look very similar as well. Those tall towered pagodas that we see.
It's that these are macro resonators, capacitors, and fractal waveguide antennas technology that was built into the actual architecture on a macro mega scale, as opposed to our micro digital processing circuits and geometries today.
This is interesting. Moving lines, load lines, lateral lines. Yeah, I mean, the thing is also just rebuilding the stuff and using it seems key. Just doing the thing and improving it.
That's what we're going to have to merge the real science into the Autodidactic Alchemist episodes this year, is set up some experiments combining, like this dendrolite someone did, a lot of like the Weimar generators, the different Tesla coils, along with some of these vacuum tubes, and essentially the Baghdad batteries. But there's...
Isn't Campbell like from Camel?
No. Crooked mouth.
Oh wow.
Campbell means crooked mouth, but I've got no P in my name. So
I think you're all right. This must be from like the old Scottish.
I thought Bernie Madoff meant crooked mouth. My bad.
Andreas just means dude. So
Campbells as well.
That's a pretty good one. Campbell, do you have anything you wanted to pull up some pictures showing some Tartaria stuff?
Yeah, do we want to get into that? Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Bernie's got a map. Oh my gosh.
On topic of Tartarian maps.
Yeah, well. Oh. Okay, Bernie's already got some that he's uploaded. Here we go. So
something I've been wanting to do, and I'd like to invite people to do while they're looking at this map, is that we haven't spent enough time probably studying the stories of all the little towns on the map. There's all of these places on the map, and I'm always thinking, like, what's the story about that place?
Every now and again, every now and again, I'll type it into like a search engine or something, like one of the random towns, but I haven't found anything yet. But this is,
I'm sure not every town's got a great history, but
right, no, and like that's a key part. Right?
I mean, the thing is also the spelling, like
Australia. I'm still
rivers and stuff.
Yeah.
And for anyone out there that has,
I think Australia used to have a good name. Sorry, Bern. Oh,
Bernie sounds like the Matrix is trying to get him. It's like he's being swallowed.
Yeah,
the mirror scene.
He's what's that dude?
You guys take over until I unglitch.
I can't remember his name now.
Let me see if I can find that GIF.
The dude in the wheelchair.
Here, can you put this on the screen for a second? Hold on. This is what it feels like. It's like that scene where he's touching the mirror, and all of a sudden, like the mirror is like. That's what it feels like. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. Speak now, Bern, or forever hold your silence. Oh no, he's gone on mute. No.
I am on mute. Sorry, I was letting you guys take over because
So
They're
if you're
Neo
talking
and
to an
Meow.
ant
Bernie
and you
is
put it
Neo.
on mute, is it a mutant? Oh, that was a good joke.
It's a very dad joke. I'm a fan.
Did you want to Oh, come on. Well, I'm allowed.
Cue to you guys.
very
In your
much,
mind is
blank.
yeah. In your mind is Tartaria a
Sorry,
lost
go.
nation, civilization, or do you think the term is better suited for a generalization of lost and stolen history? The less muddy, the better. Muddy. What do you guys think?
Yes, definitely. It's just lost and stolen history. But what happened is it was the first civilization that we found that had been hidden, and so it just became a search term. And so we still use it because that's what people look for. They type in Tartaria and search for it. So if we don't use that term, people looking for that don't find our content. So that's
Yeah,
all
I think of it kind
not
of
something we need to worry about. It's just a word.
right. I think it's kind of like an idiom because there's this idea of a lost civilization that was called Tartary, but there's also people called Tartarstanis that exist today and that they're left over that are still connected with the Tartarian culture. So there is something to the word, but there's also important to connect the Tartarians to the Barbers and the Berbers and the Bedouins and the Scythians.
Yeah.
And so it's more like it's the gateway drug to ancient lost civilizations. I think that's true.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And that's the thing. Anyone who's kind of new into this topic, they all say Tartaria, but you know, once people have been in it for a few years, they're like, oh, come on, don't call it Tartaria.
Yeah, but however, it is
Here we
interesting
go.
when you look at the
Oh.
connection of the idea that there was a confederation of different people that considered
Tartari.
themselves part of the Tartari.
Northeastern Europe.
Yeah.
Or Asia.
It was,
Eurasia. This is like a giant desert, unhospitable, frozen tundra in the northern section, supposedly, of Siberia, but then supposedly it's also melting and becoming inhabitable now. And then dryland deserts of Mongolia area. Yet, Tartaria, you actually see these built-out river systems and representations of like cities, castles, all along them, which today are dried-out river systems that modern archaeology and geology state must have been 6,000, 10,000 years since these rivers were running. Yet the maps are labeled as only 300 or 400 years old, and it's the exact same situation as Australia and much everywhere where there's these now inner deserts. Back a few hundred years ago on waterway.
Maybe Bernie, maybe you should try turning off your camera and see if that makes your microphone work better. Are you downloading stuff?
Did it work better or no?
No,
not at all.
Turn off your camera. Turn off your camera and leave your microphone on. All right, try that.
Yeah, good call. Is that better now?
For now, it should work. Let's give it a shot. It works for my buddy in Africa. Hopefully, it works for Canadians. Poor guys. Poor Canadians up there. Well, I mean,
poor Canadians, eh? We got a bad connectivity.
Well, I mean, it's interesting when you look at Tartaria.
Right back.
Okay. While you try to do that, while you try to fix that, I'll try to talk about what you're saying.
Got anything to share some of the pictures of Africa, like those sort of maps?
Can you
Barbarian.
Do you have the mod? Do you have the mod window? Give me a screen share, and I'll do that. All right, cool. All right, so let's talk about the Barbary Coast. So basically, looking at Tartaria, and when we look at the old map, let's see, is it Plato's map? Libya. I can never spell this fast. The stupid keyword. Okay, there we go. Boom. Okay, here's this idea of Africa, which is hilarious if you think about it, because what this tells you about Africa is that it was either it didn't count the south part of Africa, which is a whole other continent, because the Erythraean Sea and the Southern Sea went right through Central Africa through the Sahara. So that's an interesting thing right there. And the Liberia was full of water.
Look at this too, where it says Atlanteus,
right
where Jimmy from Bright Insight there shows the Eye of Africa, and that's exactly where Atlantis, on the corner of Africa, by the Pillars of Hercules.
I'm gonna try to pull it up again, because this is supposed to be a map of the world, and you've got Italy here to give you some perspective, and like how much of the north is connected here. But then, you know, here's the Atlantes and here's the Ethiopians. So it's a very different shape, and there's a connection up north here to the Arabian Gulf that seems to suggest that what is Madagascar and what is South Africa? Either it's not part of this, or all of this is considered part of it. So it's a very different map. But when you look at Africa now, and you look at the Tamanrasset rivers that connected, here are where the rivers would have connected to Atlantes and into Libya, right? And this is that area there. So that is now called the Barbary Coast, right? The Barbary Coast. Let's get back to the Barbary Coast. Oh, that picture would have worked just fine. North of Africa, the Barbary and Tafilet, all of these areas up here, you had were controlled by the emperor, the empire of Hannibal, the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians were in trouble with the Romans. Supposedly, the Romans made these laws, these first laws saying, look, no elephants, right? No weapons of mass destruction. There's no elephants of mass destruction. They're really upset about the elephants. And then the Romans used those elephants on the Carthaginians. So this is not to say that the Romans were that important or that they even existed necessarily, but in a sense they did, because there's a point in history where there's a lot of power that's coming out of Carthage, and there's another part of power that's in Istanbul, and that Istanbul power is control over Rome after the sacking of Sabine. And at this point, Rome isn't a lot of power, so they use it to conquer the Barbary Coast. And this comes up again. Dr. Longo's got a video about this recently, but talking about the Barbary Wars, which were way later, between the United States and Sweden and Kingdom of Sicily against the Tunis, Algiers, and Tripoli, right? So weird. Why is the Swedish crown and the mafia and the Kingdom of Sicily, which are completely different things, right? Why are they all working together to fight against the Barbary? And what are the Barbary? And who are the Berbers and the Barbars? And how are they connected? So right after the Barbary Coast conquering, and the United States goes to war in the Caribbean against these familial families who come from the Bedouin and Berber coast, Berbers, who now are pirates or have married pirates, and they have little fiefdom empires in the Caribbean. And then all of a sudden, the United States goes off and starts hunting down and killing as many of these independent sovereign people as possible, right? And that's basically the end of Tartaria.
Yeah. So, but the Barbary Wars, that's linked to the Moors as well, isn't it? Is that right?
Absolutely. So the other thing is that
the Berbers, the original Berbers, are white. They're not black.
So I'm not a big fan of defining the nations by the migratory nomadic peoples that inhabited them. No. I'm just what I mean to say is that I don't think that it was a race-based thing. I think it was a nation-based thing. Like, so Islam is not a color thing. It's not a blood thing, right? Yeah. It's a belief, and it's a way of living your life. The Nation of Islam, the Nation of MTV, the Nation of United States of America, these are ideological nations, and they're different than a nomadic tribal nation, which is the way a lot of people have looked at nations for a long time. But that's also something that's not permanent. And so many of the different groups used to work together. For instance, Christians, Jews, and Muslims all worship the same God. And so there's clearly something that happened where they were all a group, and now they're saying that they're different nations because they're migratory. I don't know. That's a weirder one. Yeah. But you look at, for instance, I
was programmed. But this is the thing, right? What we kind of think, they were all separate, right? You know, the Moors were a completely black societies. There must have been completely white societies, but that, we don't have any proof of that. It could have been completely.
What we know is it usually is the opposite. The opposite tends to be the case, that there are, people living on the coast interact with each other. There's a lot of extremophilia that are people that, like, when they travel, they tend to like traveling, and then they like ethnic food, and they like to. That's true of today. That was true back then. People will marry people from other countries. It happens. And so one of the things is that if you learn to speak the same language, you're able to communicate. And so a culture becomes a lot bigger than a small 7,000 person family, which is what a nomadic nation was at that time. So these groups of people, for instance, the Ladine people, and we think of Latin, but the Ladine, they were connected by a culture, but they were also connected to, this is where the parts of the Italian equivalent to the Black Madonna, right? And in these parts of the north, they also have blondes and Germans. This is also part of Italy where German is still spoken, because it was a part of where right before World War II, it belonged to Germany, and then the Italians rewrote the maps. So there's that. But also, just going back in history, these were areas where people communicated with each other, and so the difference of trade built this culture. So the Moors are called the Moors for a lot of different reasons, and it could be because they were wall builders, right? If you think about a Moor, it's a wall. So the civilization of the Moors is one thing. Yeah, okay. But the Berbers, the thing about the white genetics is it's a recessive gene. 13,000 years ago. So they say that all people with blue eyes originated from one ancestor 13,000 years ago. And so what it is that recessive genes, that the children's children had carried the gene. I've seen this in Chile, where you have a bunch of these people walking around, have like black hair, like two parents with black hair and brown eyes. And then they have a blonde kid with blue eyes, because both of them had a parent who was a blonde and blue eyed, or they had a grandparent who was. Yeah. So it's interesting, because so many people are saying, but really it's the opposite. It's growing.
In Australia, the natives, heaps of them, most of the kids are born with blonde hair, but then it goes dark. Some of them stay blonde with blue eyes. And same thing, you get this family of, they're all like brown eyes, dark skin, dark hair, and you get this blonde, blue-eyed kid with them, and it's one of them.
Yeah, it says a lot about cultural assimilation.
Well, if it's recessive and it came from one person, to start off, just to get the second person would have been a bit of work. But it's in that, we're still the smallest ethnicity, or whatever we are, whatever race, whatever you want to call it. But it spread pretty quick, didn't it, for a recessive
right? So
gene?
they talk about Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun, and the idea that some people just conquered and spread their seed. So the idea that this one thing happened 13,000 years ago, which aligns with the Graham Hancock thing and the Atlantis story, I think is very interesting, because it basically it's saying that this one recessive gene is coming from a conqueror, right? And that's very interesting. It's very Prometheus. But you look at the Berbers, and the Berbers are a lot of different colors. The most important aspect of them, though, is that they are a unique culture that is in many different forms of color. And so it's not really that there are Berbers that are black or white. It's more that they live in this area. Yeah.
But also their dress. If you look at the way they dress, they're right across Europe. Like, they're the gypsies. They're they're all these different people that we give different names to, but they all look like the same original nation.
That's interesting too. So the gypsies, people thought the gypsies were the Berbers, and they did for thousands of years.
Well,
but they or hundreds at least.
Like the Tartars as well. They all look like the exact same, and we're told they're nomadic people. Yet there's these crazy castles, cities, and temples and everything on the maps. Depicting in their areas. The
Egyptians are the gypsies were not from Egypt, and they weren't Berbers, but they thought they were, because they ended up going through there. But originally they were from India, and they did DNA tests that showed this. They were kicked out of India about 1,000 years ago.
Seafaring. It was always seafaring global trade everywhere. So it's like there would have been your little India, your little China, your little Italy, your little everywhere.
But this is the road of Alexandria. The Berbers are in Alexandria. So they're in the cradle of trade. So they're connected. So the only place more important than the Eastern Silk Road or Istanbul would have been Yeah, Carthage was king. You know what I mean? Up until it wasn't, and this is why they were like, yeah, let's use elephants. The elephant thing is really messed up, though. I'm not kidding. Like when you look into the elephant battles, like they would do this thing where they threw snakes at the elephants. So imagine you got a bunch of elephants and they're coming at you, and so you throw snakes at them, or you shoot snakes on the edge of a you catapult them at these elephants, or you play lots of noises, and the elephants freak out, turn around, and then they stampede over their own soldiers, right? So just dangerous. Wow. So yeah, like friends don't let friends use elephants in war. I'm just saying.
No, that sounds like the wrong kind of stampede.
I know it's a bad hill to die on, but these are the things that worry and concern me. I mean, I don't know. Looking at the Barbary, yeah, right. Looking at the Barbary War, though, I mean, it's clear that they were all different kinds of people, like because they went all over the world, and then they married whomever they met or brought with them. So it was always kind of this, as long as you're interested in sharing my culture thing, instead of you have to be of my bloodline, kind of thing.
The Barbary what were the dates? Was that late 1700s, early 1800s? Or
yeah, so there were Berber wars in Africa in the 15 and 1600s, and then in the 19th century, the American Barbary wars. But if you look
at the Pirates of the Caribbean, basically,
right. But if you look at it, there's also other things going on, because you've got the Songhai Empire in the 1600s, right, 16th and 17th century, that's starting to end, and so all the manuscripts of Timbuktu are being stolen or hidden and moved because they know that there's something going on there. And I'd love to see a movie about it, right? There should be really some sort of a Songhai Empire Netflix series. I don't know why they don't do that. Probably because that would make too much sense. But the Songhai Empire, you got to imagine how crazy it is. Yeah, it would be hard to do the trans thing, but you could have a lot of black actors in a show. It's a historical show, and it would be really cool. And it's about the most powerful empire.
Right? I think they'd have to replace those black characters with white actors, or else it would be racist and cultural appropriation or something.
Yeah, they'd have to do some kind of cultural.
Doesn't it work?
But you know what? The thing is, the Songhai Empire had white slaves, so it would have been really easy. You could have had this like Irish person, a Celt.
Yeah, that's why they can't show it, man. That's the reason they can't show it.
You just got to get some Robin Williams equivalent, who's like today. Get Bill Burr as the slave, and I think the show would work. I would watch it right away. I think.
What about Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Yeah. I mean, you could make the show and it would work. But the point is that it's actually an important, relevant historical point.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
The Rock with Bill Burr as a slave. And he has to save the Timbuktu manuscripts because the Moroccans are working with the Queen of England. It'd be a great show. I would watch it.
It would be great. I think you should.
One point I want to point out about the Tartars, for instance, is that the Turkish, a lot of history and a lot of evidence points to a major center of Tartaria being the Turkish Empire and the Ottoman Empire for a lot of the time there. And it also correlates to the same period that was known as the Arabic Gold, or the Arabic Golden Age of Alchemy, I think it was called. But during the Dark Ages of medieval Europe, at the same time, the rest of the world was supposedly in this golden age of high society, high technology within what we now call the Muslim world, but it was this Tartaria area of the Middle East, trading through Africa, trading through Europe, trading through Asia, and that you have these Baghdad batteries, which is in the heart of Mesopotamia, the heart of this same area for that golden age of alchemy there, that's right connect to Egypt with those dendrolites. It all seems like this was this heart of it, and it's recognized that it was Arabic alchemists and esoteric writings that re-inspired and advanced Europe back up into it, and that was the Tartarian Antiquitech, whatever you want to call it. Like, but that's why another reason for using Tartaria so much, especially in regards to Antiquitech, this antique technology of these sources.
I'll bring up some maps we can have a look. Isn't it interesting too, as far as like, now I've completely lost the word. Tribes that don't have, that move from place to place.
Nomadic.
What are they called? Nomadic. Thank you. But like,
nomadic.
How would they have come
or
the
gypsy.
About? You can imagine if there was like a reset and everyone started off in cities and that, and then something happened, they all got blown up, and they had to run out, and then most of their got, destroyed in their cities and that, then you would end up with these groups of people that were just walking around, right?
But you also have people that are like that all the time naturally, like people that like to live in campers. I think a lot of people that end up in cities, you look at America, they took
the year for like the last 10 years of my life before the lockdowns, for 6 months out of each year, I was living on the road as a traveling caravan, going around from festival to festival with a lot
of the people I know in Denmark. People in Denmark they spend the summer in Turkey. It's very normal. It's been a long time that's been the case, that people travel south for the winter. I think nomadicism is the natural mode in a lot of persons. In the more successful globalists, they like to be nomadic as well. So I think in general, it's a healthier thing. We've shown that people, when they were, according to the anthropological record, and it could all be lies, of course, and it probably is, but they say that when people were nomadic, they lived a decade longer and they were about a foot taller. So we've lost a decade of lifespan and a bunch of height, probably because we no longer get the diversity of diet that we had. Now that we're growing food specifically that we can grow, we get less exercise, and also there's black mold growing in some houses. So, when you move around and you get a new house all the time and you're constantly shaking things up, I think that helps a lot,
Nice. Can you see this map?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
This is Africa, the top of Africa.
Interesting.
So kind of where the Eye of the Sahara is.
Looks exactly like it, Campbell. Good find. That is. Look at it, down from the Straits of Gibraltar, right there, and it says a big circular castle there with another round circle around it. Jimmy, bright insight there. We're supporting your city of city of Atlantis there a little bit more too.
There you go. Yeah, we might have to have a bit more of a look into that. I've only just noticed. This is the what map is it? 1450, I think. I can't remember. Frau? I think it's Frau. F-R-A-U.
I think that might. Can you?
Eye of Sahara. Sorry, not Eye of Africa. The Eye.
It looks like that might be just slightly north of the Eye, because I think the Eye isn't it in central Mauritania, or where is the Eye? Is it North Mauritania or south? Because if it's in North Mauritania, it could be. Mauritania is just southwest of Algeria, which is kind of what you're looking at there. It looks like Morocco to Algeria, but right south of that directly.
Morocco, I think.
It used to be further south Mauritania, but it's kind of crept up.
Hasn't it?
But and look how huge that is. Like, just
this
you can
is
see
an older map too.
It's huge.
General proximity.
You can see here as well.
Give or take 75 kilometers, 50 miles. It looks in a pretty close spot there. And
I got a weird one.
Oh, good. We showed Andreas. It didn't have the circle represented, but that same area, it said Atlantis with a question mark on it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the guess is that Mauritanian ring. But there's another ring kind of similar to that in southwest Spain as well, north of it. And we found a bunch of rings. So I kind of think that there's another one in Argentina near Bariloche. There's one in the rainforest. There's a few, 23 miles square. I'll have to find think if I can find the Spanish one.
Okay,
2017. When did I go? 2018.
So it was around here, wasn't it?
Was that it?
So where's the?
Here we go.
ice?
Spain's drought reveals lost world. There you go. Spain's drought reveals lost world. As water levels on towns and villages that were once flooded can now be seen. And then they started finding these like ancient ruins.
That's not
I can show it later.
What's the eye called? Do we know? Has it got a name?
The Mauritania, I just call it the Eye of Mauritania, but I don't know if that's what it's called actually.
Oh, Mauritania, is it not Sahara?
The Rycat structure, or yeah, I think
it's
that's
the Ricard structure. Ricard,
right, which is hilarious. Oh my god, do you remember from Star Wars?
The Eye of the Sahara.
Star Wars
Ricard
coder, the
structure
Rakata.
the Eye of the
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, they have a
So
Star
that's
Forge, a Star Forge power thing that takes the sun and makes like planets and kills people with it. But the aliens are called the Rakata, and it's kind of it seems like an homage to this because they were supposed to be from like a failed Atlantis or something like that.
Isn't this also pretty close to where that Dogon tribe still lives? That is ancient.
I thought the Dogon. Isn't the Dogon tribe?
They're spread throughout this whole area, I thought. From like this would be like their most eastern tip, I would think.
I thought they were
western
south.
Tip. They go all the way.
I think they're
Egypt.
south. I think they're
Sudan?
south of this. Maybe. I think they're south of this.
So
Because they're in West. They're mostly in
Western
West.
border.
Yeah. Niger, Congo. Yeah. South of this is Mali.
Like, yeah, Dagon.
Yeah, the Dagon people, they're great though. Honestly, I have a friend who's a member of the tribe, and he's like his family are musicians, historians, same thing,
so
like going back thousands of years. Very cool people. But yeah, they worship the Sirius star, which sticks out.
Was that a Dogon like
serious?
camp city, ancient city thing there? This?
Mm-hmm.
Because that looks like Utah or Arizona. If that's in Africa, that's amazing.
Yeah, up in the mountains. The thing is, down here you can see water does come through here, and they're calling these areas wadis, and wadis are seasonal waters. But at one point, these were always flowing, and so that's the other thing is that they probably found a place that was above the water line from a lot longer ago, and when they come back to it now, it's because there's water in different places. Well, there's seasons now in Africa that weren't
been coming off the cliff above it when they inhabited this, essentially.
Yeah, or just underneath right here where these plants are growing, that this whole area was like all groundwater, and this was all like a river that was flowing. And the Taman Reset River.
In the architecture, how much that looks identical to the I
was going to show you this earlier, the Doñana National Park in Andalusia. So when this started to dry out because the drought, all of this stuff started to emerge, and they were like, "What the heck is that?" And so they found a bunch of these rings that were connected, and yeah, and they're all settlements, but the thought that they were some sort of an Atlantis-like thing or something even weirder because there's, they had this pattern of them that were surrounding them that were smaller cities, like an entire city of, like, God only knows what this was, but they were saying this was the ancient ruins of whatever kind of civilization they don't know yet. But it's also really close to volcanoes and mines.
I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. There's so many things like Lake Mead's drying up, like there's lakes and rivers drying up everywhere. The Euphrates is drying up. Like we're probably going to start seeing stuff like this popping out everywhere from under the water.
But also what we're seeing is the opposite, where in places that were a couple of centuries ago were wet, and we think now, oh man, they were always dry. Well, those places that were wet a lot more recently than we'd like to admit, those places are about to become wet again. Yeah. And so the Taman Reset rivers, like they at one point, well, this thing, the Taman Reset was on either side of the Sahara, and they're about to reconnect. And you've seen the pictures of the Sahara snow, but what's interesting about Sahara snow is that it keeps the moisture on the Sahara. And every year it was like, once every 20 years, then once every 10 years, then once every 5, then every 2. Now it's every year it's snowing in the Sahara, and the snow's lasting longer and longer. And you'll notice if I zoom in on these pictures of the sand dunes, that there are friggin' plants growing now, right? And it doesn't take a lot for this to change the entire Sahara. We're talking in the next 20 years. It's not going to be that long. And once that happens, then there will be water collection.
I did hear a rumor. I heard a rumor that, you know, certain types of people are buying up a lot of real estate in the Sahara because it's touted to be the new food bowl of the world. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. There's going to be just
clearly
so
means
much water.
I mean, we know it was wet. It was wet 300 or 400 years ago. It was completely like a tropical jungle.
Yeah, and the idea that these sand dunes have actually covered the place.
That's bizarre, and it's a hot desert, and it snows because it's up near the tropics.
Oh, yeah, that salt makes the most beautiful ormus. That is.
This isn't salt. This isn't salt. This is actually snow.
Oh, that's ice.
Yeah, this is the Sahara is getting covered in snow. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so that's keeping the moisture in because otherwise it would evaporate. And so things are starting to grow, extremophile plants. And once the root structure holds, then there's no more sandstorms. And so it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the rainforest that it used to be. And very soon there's going to be beavers and whatever else kind of thing. I mean, maybe not beavers, but something like it. Like maybe the hippo. The hippos.
Man, yeah.
But
yeah, I hope so.
Armadillo, sloths, and giant beavers to the Sahara.
Someone thought about this. Sahara snow
running under the Sahara, so it could happen very quick. Rick Springfield, Jesse's girl.
Must be something going on with that album. I mean, very quickly. I mean, it looks like there's an album. Rick Springfield's got an album called Sahara Snow.
Wow.
I don't know, man. He got it. I don't know.
Those were some Dali pictures. Good old AI that's been spamming.
Let's find the sync. Sahara Snow album, Apple Music, 1999.
1999. Rick Springfield was still making records. I got to hear.
Rad album covered, man. Yeah, I'm kind of curious myself. Thinking about the Sahara cover.
He was ahead of his time, man.
1999 though, the Apocalypse is probably right on his time.
He's an Australian, isn't he? Rick's
is he?
He is definitely, yeah.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's an Australian. Yes. He was in The Young Doctors, man. One of our really bad TV shows back in the 80s.
Rick Springfield from Australia.
Daniel Foster, honey oil stays good indefinitely. It's actually one of the sealing agents they found in a lot of tombs throughout the world, especially in Egypt, where they're able to date it to at least thousands of years old and still perfectly intact, as well as preserving the grains or whatever the goods found within the jars sealed by the honey oil. Remarkable longevity.
Is Rick Springfield the one I saw? Who's the other guy? There's like another guy that I think of from like New Jersey who sounds like that to me.
I didn't realize he'd had such a long career. He was going all through the 70s. I thought
Bruce
he was
Springsteen.
like a one-hit wonder. And
Springfield, Bruce Springsteen. What's up with that?
A little bit of difference.
Springfield, Springsteen. I don't know, man. That's weird. I don't know, man. It just seems like this is a simulation. One time I was in Spain, I saw I was in this town. I was trying to get to a place to stay, and like there's nowhere to stay because Bruce Springsteen is playing a musical show. And I'm like, what are you kidding me? Like because of that, they're like, are you kidding me? I sold my car to see that show. I mean, I'm like, what? So this lady like let us stay in her apartment.
Have you seen his
everyone was just standing around in the rain.
80s. I think it was to Run. I think it's the clip for that song, Born to Run, and it shows the crowd. And literally, this crowd, it goes for like a kilometer back, and they've got like massive screens going back in the crowd because there's no way in the world they can even see the stage. And they're all at the clip, but they can't actually see it or hear it. It's so bizarre.
That's what it felt like. See, for me, because I was like inside an apartment by a soccer stadium while it was a thunderstorm, and I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen coming out of this, and there's all these people that are like, they're passionate Spaniards, they're like crying, and they sold their car. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
he's
know.
huge, especially in America. He's
365
I
lovely
often wonder
souls
about. He's
watching
one
right
of those
now.
kind of.
One
Nice.
person for every day of the year. I
Many?
just
Well,
had to shout out that
366.
synchronicity. Sorry.
Nice people. Thank you.
I was going to say Bruce
Oh.
is one of these. You know how we have these sort of celebrities that are like he's massive, he's huge, and he has been for decades, but he doesn't seem to be one of them. You know, he doesn't seem to be, and he doesn't go to the award shows. He doesn't mix with.
He seems kind of chill.
Sort of see him in the media. Like, do you think there's some that can get to those heights and not be affiliated?
I think you can step back
Then
a bit, probably.
hermited away, I guess, right? Essentially.
I think if you can step back a bit.
Or,
I think if you figure out how to do a show in another, like for instance, you get a big enough audience because of America that you can go get it in Spain or something like that, then yeah, a lot of the time you can kind of retire to doing that or something. I don't think you have to be evil to be like a
step
mid-size
away and become hologram Tupac.
Yeah, and you can really tell the difference like
Yeah,
between
why
being a
not?
Hollywood record like label pushed thing and then something that people just sort of still love.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can become that as easily anymore. I think they're in a situation where they can do that.
No,
maybe.
yeah, I agree.
Shout out
they used to have to search for talent,
asking
and now
about
they just
Olaf
create
the
it.
Sverker, and we will have Olaf on hopefully within a month's time. I've actually emailed him back earlier today, harassing him to come on one of our Autodidactic Alchemist alternative history streams.
Nice.
Olaf, a Russian descendant, but raised in Scotland, currently in Scotland. Check out his channel if you haven't, but done some crucial translations of Russian languages and showing throughout the alternative history, megaliths, the Doloms, but also the leftover Tartarian Scythian civilizations and this 7,500-year-old Slavic calendar system that the Orthodox Slavics were using only 100 years ago, and still a lot of graves throughout Russia to this day from 100 years ago will have the New Age calendar, and then dated with this 7,500-year-old time as well. So right there, it just shows how much older civilizations are throughout, and that Slavic calendar, once again, it's in that same realm as the area labeled Tartaria, that is there a missing 7,000 years that these maps depicting these rivers and areas show. And could modern geology and archaeology be right in the one sense that saying the rivers and the inhabited areas that we see on these maps are that old? And was it leftovers of like a few thousand years rebuilding after the massive cataclysm of the Younger Dryas / Atlantean reset time that then became the Tartarian by the end of our most recent reset?
I got a crazy one. What do you guys think about ketchup?
I know that ketchup be called tomato sauce.
Ketchup. Sorry, you want to call it ketchup?
Is not ketchup. Tomato sauce is much closer to ketchup than what in Cuba they call ketchup, but is actually tomato jelly, like a jam, but worse. And it is not ketchup on your fries.
Fun fact: mushrooms were the not necessarily all things. Mushroom ketchup was the original ketchup, but not really. Actually, it turns out I thought this because this is in the 17th century. It was mushrooms before they started getting warmed up to using tomatoes. But actually, before mushroom ketchup, there was fish sauce from China, ancient China, that was called chai soup or kai soup. And so kai soup was the actual ancient name, except some people in Thailand called it ketsup. And so people have been arguing whether it's called ketchup or ketsup for literally as long as Tartaria, right? Because this is all out of Tartaria. This is like the region, especially where this tartar sauce. And so someone made this recently, this weathered fish sauce with mushroom in it. And they added it to like a white sauce. And they were like, actually, it was incredible. They said it was amazing. It was because fermented fish sauce is in a lot of Asian foods. Yeah, and it's dates back at least 300 BC. Kochup.
That one they make
Ketchup.
is it Finland?
I mean, yeah. So the other thing is,
Finland
there's
or
a
Norway or
Finnish
something,
shark.
They have the most stinking food in the world, and it's like
That fermented that fermented shark stuff that they do. I've had some pretty weird fermented fish. The Inuit do a fermented fish, and the bones turn into this weird jelly kind of stuff after about a year of it being under ice. But I knew a dude who like cured cancer from eating fermented fish, or he's got cancer anymore. His cancer went into remission. Let me say that better. I knew a guy who ate fermented foods, and then his cancer went into remission for no connection. So. Yeah, right. I don't know. I think this is interesting though.
Is that essentially fish wine or fish beer that would be made of that?
So you got this super concentrated, non-preservative. It doesn't need to be preservative, right? And so this is the story. In the 16th century, it became more and more popular that Londoners, people from England, would get access to things from around the world, and they liked this fish sauce. And eventually, mushroom kind of fish sauces became a thing that people would make in their homes, the way English people make curries right now, right? This is just the way English people are. But at a certain point, Americans started making ketchup, and they added weird things. And the tomato, that was the thing that it was tangy instead of the fish, and it could work. But the thing is, it would rot. And so they started adding these weird chemicals, benzoate of soda, and all kinds of these, colors, and in the 1800s. And so people were dying because the ketchup was poisoned. And then Heinz comes along and says, hey, we're going to put on the bottle free from benzoate of soda and free from all these weird ingredients. It's going to be this natural product that is free from artificial preservatives and coloring. Since the 60s or 70s, I forget exactly when that they started doing this. 1812. That's even more funny. No, actually, I think that's earlier on, the tomato ketchup. But at some point, this happens, and they take over. They corner the ketchup market, and they use the number 57, which is nothing to do with varieties of ketchup and only to do with the Kabbalah and the sacred geometry of the number 57, as far as I can tell. Right? That's the only reason that it's involved.
What does number 57 mean?
Matria. Almost did it. Go back. 57.
I still don't understand gematria.
Go, Gina, Candace.
So it means all those words.
These words all have a value in the Hebrew value of the letters and the combinations. Magic with a K. So that's, I think, probably the most important one. I would imagine that's Canada. That's a good one right there. I'm gonna start putting 57 on MK Canada. Yeah. Coca. That's pretty wild stuff.
Also, Zerdis, while we mention MK Canada, shout out to Andreas Zerdis's every Thursday Canadian themed stream. And what I was going to say is you should just automatically, when creating MK Canada, make sure to include one of my channels in those streams, as I will always co-host Thursday MK Canada with you. As a Canadian, hopefully, the Canadian government will be like, hey, look at this guy helping out with that Canadian content, coast to coast Canada.
Exactly. Sure, and I hope that they can not see money. I want the Canadian government to recognize that we are following Bill C-11 better than anybody, and that they should probably give us a medal for the best Canadians. And also, the next episode of MK Canada is going to be called Trans Canadian, and I think it's
Trans Canada. It's across the whole Canadian. You can transition to whatever you want.
I could easily become Canadian if I wanted to. I'm just saying. But really, you have to have always been a Canadian American's body.
It's not that hard. I was thinking you just have to learn to say a boot, and they let you in.
Right? It's all about being a Calgarian Tartarian and being trans-Albertan, where you can transition anywhere across Alberta. And a trans-Burton is actually other Canadians that are transitioning into the Alberta oil sands and oil industry. They're trans-Burtons.
Albertonian, Calgarian, Torontonian. Yeah.
Oh, skinny and beautiful. How nice. Did you know that about 80% of Canadians actually live below the American border?
Yeah. Did you know that I'm higher than I'm high. I'm actually north of a lot of Canada right now. I think is the way it is, because if you look at where Minnesota is, and part of, do you know part of Minnesota is in Canada? There's a part of Minnesota that's so high up.
It's one of the most northern parts of the states as well. 100%.
No, but
look
you gotta
at
see
that. You're trans-Canadian.
I'm more Canadian. I would like to point this out. Let me pull up a map for a second, because this will freak you out. The tiny Minnesota town that's completely surrounded by Canada. I'm actually further into the north, more Canadian than some Canadians are. I think it's a map so you can see what this is. Boom. Okay, look at how this goes. Ontario here. Now let's zoom in. I'm not up where this is, but this is weird. When you zoom in here, look at this right here. This little part of Minnesota is
more north than Winnipeg.
You can't,
look at how close it is to Gerald.
You have to go through Winnipeg to get there. And so this Minnesota town here, Lake of the Woods, during the ice, it's considered okay, and so you can cross back and forth when it's icy. But when it's water, technically it becomes Canada's water or something like that. So you can be on the water, I think, if you've got a thing, but they can get upset at you, and you have to have a license to be on the water. And if you during the summertime, if you get on the land ever, you've just broken the law because you've invaded Canada without legally going through the correct border or something like that. And this town, during the COVID quarantine, during the quarantine, they didn't know what to do for this town, because they're like, we don't have access to vaccines, a hospital, masks, tests, any of the stuff that you're demanding for us to visit our families, to travel through the country. So how the hell are we supposed to get?
That's horrible.
Well, they were trying to figure out what to do. They were trying to do a strike. What are you looking at? What is this? Is this Minecraft? I can't. Oh, it's a bear. There's a bear right now. What just happened? A bear came into...
Amber found a video of a bear that it's a repeat offender breaking into 7-Eleven. Repeat offender.
God, someone has to tell that bear.
You're talking about Canada, and I was like, even if this is filmed in America, this is as Canadian as it gets. It's a trans-Canadian bear.
That's wild, man. That's wild. Nice. Bears are wild, man. I don't know. Pretty crazy.
She says it does say CA, so it's either in California or Canada.
I'm gonna get some mushroom gravy, whatever that ketchup is.
Would the bear like mushroom gravy?
Sounds disgusting. Mushroom ketchup.
Campbell, Aussie Man did a review on it, so it's even funnier. And a fellow Australian is reviewing this Canadian culprit.
All right, just saying that the bear just took the bare necessities, so that's fair.
Have you ever noticed that bears don't have bare feet? They've got like fur on them.
That's true. He's covered up. I don't know, man.
That's a true definition of a troubled bear.
A troubled bear. You know, I still feel sad for old Humphrey. All he did was not wear pants, and they cancelled him. I mean, if he could have just stuck 5-10 years, he would have been like at the
that's a bear market. Your stock is going down.
Are you guys gonna watch that movie Cocaine Bear? Are you looking forward to that?
Oh God, yes. I saw the advertisements with Amber like 2 months ago, and she's like, yes, we have to watch this, put it on. And I'm like, it's ridiculous, but we just have to watch it. Because
have you heard about this, Campbell? Do you know the true story of the American
true story? Loosely
yeah, I mean, very loosely based. The movie's not going to be like the true story. What happened? Escobar. So what happened was a 175-pound bear. Well, let's go back to the beginning. So before this happened, somebody was flying with some cocaine, and the cocaine somehow fell out of the sky. Kilos and kilos of bricks of cocaine fell out of the sky into this national state park. Luckily, there were no babies present, but there was a giant bear, and this giant bear ate an entire bag of cocaine. It's like 6 pounds of cocaine or something like that in its stomach when they found the bear. And yeah, so it was.
Did he eat it, or was he sniffing it?
Well, I mean, he ate it. It was inside of his stomach. This is the bear right now in the mall. You can go to the mall.
That is the petrified cocaine bear. It did so much.
Taxidermied, yeah. You go to the
taxidermied itself.
No, they wanted people to see the Kentucky Mall. So whenever kids come to the mall in Kentucky, they get to see this bear that's sitting there, and it reminds them of what happens
They
when
should have
cocaine
a
falls out of the
sign on
sky.
the front
Now,
saying,
Jimmy, that's why you do not eat
"Don't do
3
drugs,
kilos of cocaine or feed 3
Don't
kilos
do
of
drugs,
cocaine to a
kiddies."
bear.
It's a nice story.
Yeah. He started off as a 17-year-old girl, and now look.
This movie's gonna be
There's another.
different.
There was a Did you hear that a plane went down in the 70s? I think it was in South America, full of like pot, full of marijuana. It was a CIA plane, and all these mountain climbers were around it, and they saw it go down, and they all ran around and jumped in, and they pulled out heaps, like all the contraband.
Oh wow!
And took off and got it all out before the authorities got there. And the authorities sort of got there and went, "Oh, it's a crash plane." And they didn't find any evidence, so they just went, "Oh, they didn't realize it was a drug plane." But anyway, then all these hikers, went these mountains, started turning up with all this, brand new design up sort of climbing gear, and
Oh,
they were all
nice.
out selling it. But a few of them got together and they started, what's it called? Is it Patagonia? No, is that what's called?
Patagonia
Yeah,
clothing
the
line?
outdoor show.
That's because they found cocaine money?
Yeah.
Is that how Patagonia was started? That is
They
the
used
best
money,
story
yeah,
for
they used the
North
money
Face
from
and
selling pot.
Patagonia. Oh my god! And that's why it exists.
Yeah,
The Patagonia jacket.
Yeah,
I'm not
how
afraid to
cool is
admit it.
that?
That's cool, actually.
I'm pretty
Patagonia
sure it was
company.
Patagonia, but yeah.
That makes the most freaking sense of any backstory for them. They were, yeah, okay, I can buy that. That actually covers a lot of the
Because they were
backstory.
just
They were
climbers and they suddenly,
one of the guys was really good in Italian at making hand pounded climbing gear, and the other one started North Face, and he was a Ventura County son of a importer or something for textiles, so he's able to get plastics. So yeah, I can see that. That's interesting. Same, there's a story with O'Neill that was similar. But did you hear about the woman who fell out of the sky? There's a documentary that Herzog made. Werner Herzog was going to be on this plane, didn't end up on this plane for some random reason. This is the plane that crashed. He found the one person who survived the plane. She was like 16 in a mini skirt, or something like that. And then the plane, her chair disconnected from the plane. Her parents died. Everybody died. And her chair landed and her collarbone shattered, and she wandered 2 miles into, the town over the next few days after she woke up from a coma. But somehow the wind carried her chair down or something. The only person to survive the flight.
No way.
Because she had her tray table up and her seat was in the full and upright position. I don't know.
I hear Red Bull gives you wings.
Exactly.
Does cocaine do the same?
I mean, this is the craziest story, right? Just
Oh,
one survivor. And so he went and he brought her back to the
Yeah.
spot and had her show off the plane wreckage, which is part of it was still there, which was what?
Where her parents died. That's nice.
Yeah. Werner Herzog's nuts, man. I love that
Let's
guy.
go back.
But yeah.
Tragic memory you have.
Yeah, it's Wings of Hope, I think
Jeez,
is ironically the name of the documentary. Yeah, it is. Highly recommend it. Anytime you're ever man, and you're worried, you feel bad about your life, you got to watch It's a Wonderful Life or Wings of Hope. Just remember, it could have been your collarbone could be shattered.
Safety.
Seat of safety, yeah. Buckle up, right? It's the movie. I don't know.
I'd buckle up.
Miracles happen. You see that movie, Miracles?
Buckle up, Buttercup. Let's see the miracle.
I'm a sucker for 1986 rom-coms, and there's this movie called Miracle about a divorced couple. They're in the process of divorcing, but then everything keeps happening. All these miracles keep happening to them. It's pretty good. They try to get assassinated or something executed, but somehow a bullet goes off and it shoots through, and it goes through the rope, but then it shoots the bird, and then the bird falls and it lands in the window of the house of this family that has no food on the table. So every little thing is a beautiful miracle every step of the way. And it's just a domino effect of miracles.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty great. I like that.
Yeah, connections. Okay. Sounds very nice.
But yeah, sorry for my ADD. I'm just thinking about Tartarian again, and the idea also of the Antiquitech, as Bernie was bringing up, because
never apologize for your fellow ADHD. I love it, and I'm the same. It keeps it interesting.
I feel like 6 people at home were like, I need to watch that movie. So that was probably worth it. But I mean, you look at the Antiquitech and you have to wonder about the crystal quartz and the brick. That's the thing I was going to say. Because you got this over and over again. The 4, you brought up earlier that little symbol that had the 4 rods for connectivity. I forget which one it was.
Yeah.
But similar.
Yeah. But it's also the like the 4. If you look at that from top down, just on the top, there's a central dome with a tree pillar going up through the middle, and then it's got 4 corners on it, 4 pillars around the outside. It's like it's a representation of the realm as well.
And if you put the 2 pillars together, because you get the Jacob and Boaz, masonry pillars, but you also have this kind of DNA like thing, right, where you've got this these 2 spiraling ribonucleic pillars.
Oh yes, this is a real spot. This is not an AI image. This
Mars Pop. This is a scene from Assassin's Creed. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
It's in India. What do you think the towers are for?
So, I mean, I like to think that the
potentially resonating bells, a little bit of
right. I think the idea of bells. So earlier we were looking at the magic square. I don't know if I can find it's the magic square of Jupiter picture that we saw. I forget which one it was. The Alchemist picture, painting something. In one of these pictures of the Alchemist square, it shows it with the bell. This one right here. Right above this is a bell.
Oh yeah, the magic squares.
But there's you can't see it, but this is cropping it. Above this is the bell. There's a bell right above it. So constantly you'll see a magic squares below a bell, and that's interesting to me because it seems to me the other thing I was looking at was magic.
You're actually onto something huge. It's connecting the Masonic squares or the magic square system, and it connects into the vortex-based mathematics that is the bell shape and the energy between the 2. And then you get into these prime quadruplet sets, and it ties into like the Nazi bell sort of technology, the Rodin coil sort of technology, mathematic energy, toroid fields, and all of that. And yeah, it's like it's just so complex, the amount of information and technology that's been hidden within all of this sacred geometry and these symbols.
Sorry, Cam, what do you say? I missed that.
What is a magic square? Is it basically like an equation, is it?
So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can use. They use them for divining. They use them for actually, you could consider your multiplication table a magic square because it can reveal, data for multiplication. They use them for miscarriage prevention. Midwives have used them for thousands of years all over the world. Magic squares. Let's see if we go to the wiki. Yeah, they put them on ceramics and then they smash it.
A code? Because that last one you showed, every edge equaled 6. Is that
right? Yeah, there's codes.
Magic squares they all add up on certain sides or something like that. Like
6 as well. Yeah. Well, 15, which is 6.
This is a magic constant of 15 in this square with 3 rows. Earlier, this is the picture. Durer's Melancholia, right? Because we're talking about Melancholia in the movie.
That square would have equaled 15 up and down, left to right, and diagonal, right? Across 3 squares.
Right, but this is a 33, right? I think
4.
this is a 33.
Yeah. What have we got? 10, 5.
34 and 6,
3, 13, 2, 16, 18, 28, 34. It looks like. Is that right?
34. It looks. Yeah, they all add up to 34 on that one.
Right. So 33 and 0, because 33 has an absolute value of 34, because 0 is a number. So you've got 34, right? And then there's a fraction of the leftover.
Well. Is 0 a number, or are there only 9 numbers?
It depends on if you want it to be.
Both. So 0 is both nothing, but it's also the toroid that is part of. With 1 is 10, which is your explanation.
It's the starting point. Yeah.
Well, 1 is the starting point. The 0 is the everything and the nothing that when combined with the 1 gives you the multiplication up to the next dimension or higher dimensional full units, I guess, of
the big bang of
dimensions.
numbers.
Kamana,
Yeah.
I'm in Calgary, Alberta. I also have family land out in the Kootenays and am through the interior of BC.
Ooh.
Lots planning on doing the coast. So
Kamada.
yes, we should hang
Kamada.
out sometime. Kamana. Sorry,
We have
sir.
another candidate to join only cams. You got Cam, and you
Said
know
we'll
that's
be
the
right back.
only prerequisite. So.
Canada will be on only that'll be my name on only cams. I will be Canada on only cams. The Canada BurnEye.
The comedian.
The Canadian on only cams, because we gotta hustle hard to get them jobs, whatever it takes.
Stop showing my
making
abs off
enough
to
off
YouTube. What are people laughing for? I don't get it. What, don't they like my abs? God.
I thought they were amazing.
People just laugh.
Like, look at this routine you had. This, like, from here, smoking cigars, lean back, all the way to then, like, appearing in a South Park episode. This is Cam on Kelly's Ranch on South Park. And then busy man, after working out on the ranch, he got them abs and only cams. Well, I wish I had abs like that.
Many people do. Many people do. Thank you, Joe Cool.
Shout out Joe Cool for supporting the cause. So this guy is also in Canada, Western Canada.
I know. I think I do need some coffee. Gosh.
Oh, I need to go to bed. I've been up for 30 hours straight now. So with 20 more minutes, and it is bed night for this guy. But we do have.
What's the time there now?
It's midnight right where I am right now.
3 o'clock. Oh, okay. So,
Friday we will be doing this with
like 5 in the morning.
Yeah, right.
You talk. I'll shut up.
Which it will be for this one right here will be 5, and I can't myself doing the how to make monoatomic silver, and a little heads up of what you need. You'll need these silver ounces. This one is a minted Canadian Montreal Olympics silver dollar that I will be using for the live demonstration.
Please don't go and steal your grandma's jewelry.
Seriously.
So what else you'll need is a USB that you no longer want. See, just a regular USB. You cut off the ends, and you got yourself a positive and a negative that you then connect one.
Oh my God. I've never thought about doing a USB DC. That's brilliant. Instead of using an AC.
That's all I do to use it. It's so simple. And then, you just need the clamp.
So what are you getting? You're getting a half a volt though? It's a it's a half a volt through DC, so it's a pretty low power.
It goes up to 5 volts, I guess, going through these. And it's enough to run it for 3 days before it breaks down the anode side for 3 days worth of production of monoatomic, which will turn into this pure white material. And after 3 days, it then starts degrading into diatomic, where it oxidizes, turns blue, and that's poisonous and the last thing you want. And so this colloidal water, that is the fresh water after you've rinsed all the salt out. I rinsed it about 9 times before it's becoming drinkable colloidal water. And with this laser here, you can see that it goes strictly through. There's no parts of the monoatomic that then clearly blocked out when it's in its full mass at the bottom and settled. And that's what's doing this clear water that gives you this super powerful colloidal mixture. Once again, this is me doing it. And to show, once you drink, so usually you pour the water out to harvest it before drinking it, so you don't risk mixing it all up. And then this, for instance, is now when it's mixed, you can see, oh, that laser is that water not clear, it's got to settle, and that's what you want. So
Nice.
Dang.
for Friday,
Zero
We'll be
medical or
doing
health
our-
advice.
get
But that was
$7
neat.
And can I
in
say
your
that I'm
USBs
extremely
and you'll be
offended
good.
that I'm not on?
I'm
I'm
offended.
not on the thumbnail.
I'm offended that you're not on the
I'm
thumbnail.
taking my channel and going home, man. Oh, and Bernie's so offended he's just left. So there you go.
Just generate
So
more
everyone's just
hashtags for me,
offended at the moment.
you know, and you can use my QR code. That's fine.
More hashtags.
But yeah,
Oh.
where'd Bernie go? We lost him. Oh, he's there. He's just putting it away.
All right. Well, we've been going an hour 40. And
I
everyone
just
looks a bit
found out
dead,
the
so
bear
should we wrap
was
this
a
one up?
resident of Lake Tahoe, California, that was robbing.
No, that's really
the
funny
07.
because that's what I was gonna say. When I had bear problems, it was in Lake Tahoe and
Cocaine
Truckee. When I
bear.
was living in Truckee,
the-
there not Cocaine Bear. I never met Cocaine Bear. I just heard about Cocaine Bear. But when I was living in Lake Tahoe, I was going to Squaw Valley Academy. One time, my dad comes to visit me, and there's this other
7-Eleven
dad.
thief bear is Lake Tahoe.
There's this other dad. Truckee's really close to Lake Tahoe. It's like Squaw Valley, Truckee, that whole area, you know. North. So this dad comes to visit one of the kids who's at the school with me, and he leaves a McDonald's breakfast sandwich, I think it is, in his minivan. And the bear comes and pulls the minivan over and open like a tin can and climbs and just flips the thing rather than going in and grabbing the thing, just flips the vehicle over enough times that it shakes the hamburger out and then just starts like rolling around eating the thing. And I don't know if there was like soda, but it's just like this horrible, and we're all like 2 stories, 3 stories above because there's like a, you know, down, and we're looking at this happen and we're just like, Jesus. But yeah, so you always have to, in Tahoe, you have to lock up your, the trash bucket thing has a lock on it on the dumpsters and stuff so that the bears can't open them.
Or walk around with a McDonald's, what was it, breakfast sandwich in your hand, and if you see a bear, throw it the sandwich.
You know what to do. You give them the sandwich. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if a bear's coming at you, share your food. But normally what you're supposed to do is like have someone else with you, and you're like, I'm loud and big.
I think that's a good thing, you know, for Canadians and Australians. We don't have guns, so I think that McDonald's could say.
Do you have bears? Do you have bears in Australia?
Canadians are allowed some.
No, we don't have bears. We have koalas. But they're not
Only
really
the
bears.
long
They-
barrel.
Bears don't. Koalas don't
We
count.
have
Can you
the-
imagine a koala goes to jail with these other bears,
Koalas
and
are
this bear's like,
marsupials. They're technically not bears.
We have the dreaded drop bear. Have you not heard of the dreaded Australian drop bear? Man, that thing
I don't know.
on these tourists like you wouldn't believe.
Australian drop bear? Is this real?
Something I
man.
am going to be going forward with in one of the real sciences with Matthew Rife. And in the USBs, a lot of the time, too, you'll have your positive, your
Predatory
negative
wallet.
for your anode cathode, but you'll also have your white-green audio wires, and that I want to be able to start hooking that up into the signal generators or computer aspect, and then plugging signal sound frequencies into these reactions as well. And there's a YouTube channel I can no longer find, but it was called Bluey's Energy, where he'd be pumping some of the solfeggio frequencies into the reaction, and literally the hydrogen and the monoatomic silver he was making would turn into these clustered plasmids, and it would create sonoluminescence, where it was literally having these lights come out of the clusters of the monoatomics. It was some of the coolest stuff I'd ever seen. And it actually, the silver was forming into like this pattern of the seed of life, and then the light sonoluminescence was in the middle. So that's my goal by the end of the year.
And you'll have to get onto the Rife. You could do that with a frequency generator, couldn't you?
Yes, exactly. So shout out to 17 Joy. And yeah, we'll be doing an episode together with Matthew Rife, 17 Joy, Gerald WPG, and Jeremiah from Join the Technicians in the chat right now. We will be putting together our next Year of the Coil episode soon, and we will definitely be going over all of that. Following, we're basically going to be.
But it can't be Year of the Coil. It has to be, because that was last year, so it has to be.
and the coil
Year of the Coil has to be like Revenge of the Coil, Son of the Coil, Return of the Coil. What's it gonna? Revenge of the Coil.
Well, so I did 6 episodes over 6 months for the first half of Year of the Coil, and then the new year is actually we got another 6 months
Chinese
of
New
it
Year's.
still being the first year of Year of the Coil, and then it'll have to be Revenge of the Coil for the second. 100%, you're on it for year 2 and year 3. Real science is going all the way, and
Year of the Coil goes west. I think that'll be good. Yeah,
we're gonna be changing the world and have 100 different patents for all of us. It's gonna be excellent.
We are the coils. Indeed. All right, so there you go, everyone. So make sure you go and subscribe to everyone else's channel if you haven't. Andreas Sertas, Crypto Alchemist,
and Campbell Autodidactic.
And of course me if you're on another channel.
Exactly.
And share this around, and we will be back on Friday. Sertas is up every day, aren't you? You on day, Andreas?
Well, I'm trying. So I'm supposed to fly tomorrow. I'm going to try to do it anyway. Wow.
So I did a stream earlier today just on the alchemy on my channel, a little update of it, and that the one that's yellowy there with some silver in the middle now, right behind Ernie, you can see what looks like these yellowy strings coming off of the top there and floaters. That was my blood that has coagulated into these new plasmid being worm things that are going to grow into even more.
This freaking guy.
It's halfway to homunculi. I'm not going to lie.
We're going to get one back
BurnEye halfway to homunculi guy.
Brutal. That is some brutal stuff. Well, better you than me.
The only thing stopping me is
better Bernie than all the rest of us. Guys, don't try this at home, but if you want to watch Bernie do it, I suppose here it is.
Watch Bernie do it on OnlyCams, creating the full munculus, going all the way into the jar.
Full munculus.
Pay me $10,000. No, 100,000, and I will jack off into a jar, and we will try to create.
We'll say, please save that for OnlyFans. Please do. Yeah. Please don't do that here.
Just
do that here.
That was a joke.
OnlyCams is a family website as well. Come on. All right.
You're right. You know what? I think I've offended everyone tonight.
Someone has to tell a joke or something. We have to clean the air.
It's not ever gonna happen.
Oh my god.
Dark humor. Sorry. On that note, y'all have a good night.
Gosh, bloody Canadians. Can't trust them. All right, guys. Take it easy. Love you all. And we'll talk to you on the next upload. Bye for now.